Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to have a ceremony for Buddha's Enlightenment Day. In East Asian countries, we celebrate Buddha's Enlightenment on December 8th. And at Zen monasteries, we have a session, 7-day session called Rohatsu until the midnight of 7th, and they have this ceremony on the morning of 8th. But here we have the ceremony on Sunday after Rohatsu session. We sit 7 days to express our gratitude to Shakyamuni Buddha because of his awakening. Now we studied his teaching and we can practice. So on this occasion, each year I talk something about Buddha's awakening. And to me it's easier to talk about what Buddha conquered. That means Māra, more than talking about Buddha's enlightenment. Probably it's not possible to talk about what is enlightenment, but through his awakening, he conquered Māra. So when I understand what Māra is, then we can see the nature of his awakening. That is what I have been doing for last few years. And in 2012, 3 years ago, I talked about the famous story of kind of a fighting between Māra and the Buddha. Māra is a powerful heavenly demon, and he didn't want Shakyamuni to become a Buddha. So he fought against the fire. Buddha was sitting under the Bodhi tree. And last 2 years, I talked about 5 skandhas, because 5, according to at least Mahayana Buddhist tradition, Māra is 5 skandhas. This is what is said by Nāgārjuna. Actually, Dogen Zenji wrote chapter of Shōbōgenzo entitled Arousing Bodhicitta, or body mind. And at the end of that chapter of Shōbōgenzo, he introduced this sayings by Nāgārjuna. And Nāgārjuna said there are 4 kinds of Māra. And first one in Sanskrit called Skandha-māra. Skandha means 5 skandhas, Pancha-skandhas. And second, it's called Kleśa-māra. Kleśa means delusion or delusive desires. That is second Māra. And the third is called Mṛtyu. I don't know how to Māra. Mṛtyu means death. And the 4th is Devaputra-māra. Deva means heaven, and Putra means son or child. So this Devaputra means is translated as Tenshi, So this is a kind of a heavenly being. Said Māra lived in the highest point of the realm of desire. Anyway, the famous story about the fighting between Māra and Shakyamuni is done by this kind of Māra, Devaputra. And what Nāgārjuna said is there are 4 kinds of Māra, but actually only one. And only one Māra is 5 skandhas, according to Nāgārjuna. That means this 5 skandhas is Māra. Māra is not someone else who can attack from outside, but Shakyamuni's 5 skandhas were themselves Māra. So Shakyamuni was actually fighting with himself, and he conquered. That means, in that case, this skandha is called 5 or pancha upadana skandha. That means upadana is attachment. So when, according to Buddha's teaching, only 5 skandhas are here. There's no owner or operator of these 5 skandhas. And yet, when 5 skandhas works together, like as a machine, somehow these 5 skandhas create something called I, or the self. And 5 skandhas think this I is the owner and operator of themselves. And what he said is this mechanism is Māra. So when Buddha conquered Māra, he became free from this attachment to this self, or 5 skandhas attach themselves to 5 skandhas. And when he conquered Māra, he see 5 skandhas are empty. There's nothing to cling to or attach himself. That is released from the Māra. So last 2 years, I talked about Buddha's teaching, about how Buddha taught about we are released from this clinging or attachment to ourselves. These 5 skandhas cling to these 5 skandhas. And that makes our life into samsara. And this year I'd like to talk about the third kind, Māra as a death. Actually, as a Sanskrit word, Māra, according to a dictionary, means maker of this, maker of this, or a killer or a murderer. So Māra has something to do with death. And I think all human, not only human beings, all living beings, death is a common. We know we will die. There's no way to avoid. But still living beings don't want to die. So here is a kind of a problem. How can live together with death? But at least for most of us, death seems like enemy, and we need to fight against death. But there's no way we can win. We can conquer the death. And even when I read the biography of Shakyamuni Buddha, I found a kind of an interesting thing. You know, he left his father's palace because he saw aged person, sick person, and dead person. When he left his palace and he saw those, in first 3 days, he saw those people who are suffering for aging, sickness, and death or dying. And fourth day, when he get out of his palace, he saw a religious practitioner, and that experience made him to leave his palace and become a religious practitioner. So, you know, those three things, aging, sickness, and dying, it is the very basic problem for him. Of course, to experience aging, sickness, and dying, we need to be born. So birth, aging, sickness, and dying is the main theme or main basic problem for Buddha. That was his motivation. How can we conquer, you know, the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and dying? And he practiced for several years, said 6 years, maybe more than 6. So that was a process. He was actually fighting against death. And when Buddha had awakening under the Bodhi tree, it is said Buddha conquered or beaten the death or the Māra. But Buddha didn't kill the Māra. This is interesting thing. So Buddha was not a killer. Māra was the killer, and Buddha was not a killer. But somehow Buddha won the fighting against death. So Buddha didn't kill the death. So Māra still alive. Māra just withdrew. He was not killed or eliminated. So even after his awakening, Māra was together with Buddha. And sometimes Māra visited Buddha. And actually, right after his awakening, not Buddha, but Māra visited Buddha. You know, there's a famous story when he attained awakening. He continued to sit Bodhi trees or other trees and enjoying his release or nirvana. And he didn't want to teach. He has a hesitation to teach. This, according to certain sutra, this hesitation was done by Māra. Māra's suggestion. So actually, probably this Māra means part of Buddha, part of Buddha which have a negative feeling or attitude toward life. Anyway, so right after his enlightenment, Māra visited him again. And Māra said in one, this is Pali's Nikaya, one sutra says, on a certain occasion, I was staying at Uruvela, so he was still sitting under the Bodhi tree, on the bank of the Laranja River, where he attained enlightenment, underneath the Ajapara tree. At that time, Māra, the evil one, approached me. So Māra visited him again. And having approached, stood to one side and said, Venerable One, may the Venerable Master now attain final Nirvana. May the Blessed One now attain final Nirvana. Now is the time for the Venerable Master's final Nirvana. This means enter Nirvana right away. That means die now. And in another story, Buddha said, it's really difficult to this Dharma to teach others. Even he tried to teach because this Dharma is very profound and subtle. He thought no one could understand. So he thought it might be easier for me to enter final Nirvana right away, or without teaching. And that was what Māra said, death is better than life, or at least easier. But Buddha continued, when he had thus spoken, I said to Māra, the evil one, I will not enter final Nirvana until the bhikkhus, who are my disciples, are set on their course, trained, experienced, learned, protectors of the teachings, practitioners of the teachings, and will pass on what they have heard from their teacher, meaning Buddha himself. Expound it, teach it, establish it, elucidate it, explain it, analyze it, make it clear, and until they are able, in accordance with the Dharma, to refute what should be refuted. However much they are reproached by others, and explain the teachings by means of wondrous powers. So this is Buddha's answer to the Māra's encouragement to enter final Nirvana right away. I don't think this is really happened. At that time, Buddha still has a hesitation to teach. But somehow, part of Buddha wanted to share what he discovered with people. So he said until he teach what he discovered, and those people really understood and practiced and ready to transmit to the next generation, I will not enter Nirvana. According to this sutra, that is Buddha's answer to the Māra. So here he talks about vow to share this Dharma with all beings. And he made a resolution to stand up from his sitting under the Bodhi tree and walked to the beer park and started to teach. So he rejected Māra's invitation to die right away. So Buddha, that is another way Buddha defeat Mara. And when he made that resolution to teach, what he said, the gate of ambrosia. Ambrosia means deathlessness. The gate of deathlessness is now open. That means he opened this gate of deathlessness. So here, death and deathlessness. That is one quality, one nature of Buddha's awakening. He decided to leave. And he said, what here he's going to teach is this gate to deathlessness. And after he started teach, and many people came him to practice with him, and the Sangha was formed. He started to establish the precept. And one of the four most important precepts are not killing. And in that precept, what Buddha said about this precept is this is the third parajika in the Vinaya precept. It said, whatever monk should, with his own hand, deprive one that has human form of life. So this precept of not killing is killing human form of life, not an insect or plants. Obtain an assassin or killing, assassin.
Assassin.
A-S-S-A-S-S-I-N.
Yeah.
Assassin. Killing. Yeah. For him. Instigate him to death, or praise the nature of death to him, saying, O man, what use is this dreadful, sinful life, which is a poison to you? Death is better for you than life. Should the monk purposefully, with an impure mind, instigate him in many ways to death, or praise the nature of death to him, and that man should die by that means and no other. This monk is parajika, expelled. He is not to obtain dwelling together with the monks. So this is a precept about not killing. So he prohibited Buddhist monks to praise the nature of life. And we should not, even though he taught life is suffering. Even though he said he thought Buddha's life is suffering, he requests to his students, don't praise death. So this is very interesting. That means even though life is difficult, but we should determine to live. We never praise death, or we should never negate life. And he continued to teach for almost 40 years, and he became about 80 years old. The final days of Shakyamuni were described in the Pali Parinibbana Sutta. And according to that sutta, Mara visited Buddha again. And again, Māra said, this is time for you to enter Nirvana. But somehow he accepted. In this case, he accepted Māra's invitation. You know, he was 8 years old. That means he was aging, and he was sick, and he was dying. To me, the interesting thing is, you know, Buddha left his father's palace, that means mundane world, to find a way to conquer aging, sickness, and dying. And when he attained enlightenment, he said, the gate of deathlessness is wide open. But after 40 years after, he, you know, continuously teaching and practicing. At the end of his life, he was aging, he was sick, he was dying, and actually he died. So my question was, what is this deathlessness? Or what the conquering Māra means? That means, what is the difference between people Shakyamuni saw when he was young, when he was living in the palace, and Shakyamuni's condition 40 years later, right before his death? Are there any difference between those people Buddha Shakyamuni saw and what Buddha experienced? Are there any difference between these two sets of aging, sickness, and dying, between, you know, other people and Shakyamuni? And between these two, there is Buddha's awakening. And Buddha said, the gate of deathlessness is open. So what is this deathlessness means? I think this is a very important question. How can we, even Buddha couldn't avoid, you know, aging, sickness, and dying. Actually, when he was dying, he had a lot of pain. So and he couldn't walk anymore. So he asked Ananda, his attendant, to put the bed on the ground, and he died on the ground. So even after he attained awakening and became Buddha, that means he entered Nirvana, you know, he had physical pain. And I'm pretty sure he had a mental pain also, pain or sadness. For example, you know, according to a story, when Buddha became old, his tribe or clan all killed, conquered by a larger country named Kosala. And on that occasion, you know, Buddha tried to stop the king of Kosala attacking the Shakya clan. He did 3 times. And the king of Kosala changed his mind and withdrew. But I think third time, I think, Buddha didn't stop. So the king attacked Shakyamuni's clan, and all of them, or most of them, were killed. When he had such an experience, I'm pretty sure he had sadness, pain and sadness. If he didn't, then I'm not so much interested in his teaching. So even after his awakening or became Buddha, or even within his nirvana, he had physical pain and also mental pain too, or sadness when he saw not only his own family or clans, but when he saw people in difficulties, I think Buddha has a very profound sadness and felt painful. I think that is compassion. That compassion. Compassion has two sides. One is to see people's pain or suffering and try to help some means to reduce the pain or suffering. And another aspect of compassion is giving joyness or happiness. So in order to have compassion, I think Buddha needs to be very sensitive about pain and sadness for all people. So even after his awakening, he had, both physical and mental pain and suffering, pain and sadness. So we have to understand what the difference between suffering in samsara and suffering in nirvana, what Buddha experienced. So I don't think after he became Buddha, he experienced no suffering or pain or sadness. So in that sense, his life in nirvana is not so different from people in samsara. So what is this difference? I think it's a very good question to understand what Buddha taught. What that means, what this deathlessness means. And when, according to another sutra, this is not Pali Nikaya, but that sutra of Buddha's final teaching, Chinese translation. In this sutra entitled Butsu-yui-kyo-gyo, the sutra of Buddha's Yui-kyo means last teaching. So in this teaching, in this sutra, Buddha was dying, and he gave the final teaching to his monks who were there. And what he taught in that sutra was called Hachidai Nengaku, or 8 aspects of great beings. And those eight aspects of great being is not so different from Eightfold Noble Path or 6 parameters. The point of practice monks should keep in their minds. And after he taught that, he said, don't be sad. He said to his monks, don't be sad, don't cry. I have done what I have to do, what I have to do. It's not different even if I continue to live. So after my death, so he's talking about impermanence. Even Buddha is going to die. But after that kind of instruction, the Shakyamuni said, after my death, study my teaching and practice it. Then, in that sutra, Buddha says, then the indestructible Dharma Kaya of Buddha always present in their practice, in his disciples' practice. So, to me, this deathlessness, what he said when he started to teach, is this Dharmakaya. This Dharmakaya conquered the negative side of life and death. I mean, life and death are always together. This is another side of life. So life and death is actually one thing. We cannot make choice. When we live, we are 100% alive. And when we die, we are 100% dead. So we can think, or we can think this is better than life, only within life. But that is what our life, we are doing within life. So we cannot really negate life. And when, so even our desire to die is a part of our life. And when we are dead, we are 100% dead. So we cannot think about life. So life and death are really one thing, and life and death never meet each other. To see, this reality, I think is to go beyond life and death. That is, that awakening is deathlessness, I think. So when he talks about 5 skandhas, 5 skandhas is Māra. When 5 skandhas attach themselves and become the Upadana 5 skandhas, then our life as our life and death become delusive. But when we see the emptiness of 5 skandhas, that means we see that there's no way to cling, because only 5 skandhas are there. There's no way to cling to ourselves, to attach ourselves. So 5 skandhas are simply 5 skandhas with attachment. This is a revelation from 5 skandhas. And according to Mahayana teaching, this is what, as I always say, this is what is said in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, or Heart Sutra. In the very first sentence, he said, the sutra says, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when deeply seeing, practicing Prajnaparamita, clearly see the emptiness of 5 skandhas and relieve all suffering. So, to conquer the Māra, or to go beyond life and death, means to live without clinging to life and death. Just live and just die without clinging to them, and also without dislike or hatred against life and death. That is how we can go beyond or see the deathlessness. And that is actually what Dogen says. Dogen wrote the first scroll in Shōbōgenzo entitled Life and Death, or Shoji. Shō is life, and Ji or Shi is death. And in Chinese and Japanese, Buddhist term, this Shoji, is not life and death, but this is a compound as one word, life and death, or Shoji. And as a common Buddhist technical term, Shoji is a translation of Sanskrit word samsara. So Shoji means suffering, or transmigration, or repetition of being born, live, and die, and reborn. But Dogen Zenji used this expression, life and death, in a very different or positive meaning. So when we read Dogen's words about life and death, or Shoji, we need to understand as a common Buddhist term, life and death means suffering, or samsara. But using this same expression, he said a very different thing. So this is part of Shōbōgenzo Shoji. He said, so this is Dogen. Seeking after Buddha, outside life and death. So life and death and Buddha is kind of opposition. Buddha is a person or teacher who become free from life and death, free from samsara. But what Dogen is saying, if we seek Buddha outside life and death, is like trying to go to Yue. Yue is a part of China in the south. Trying to go to Yue in the south with the thrills, T-H-R-I-L-L. Thrills, like a handle of the cart.
Wheel,
vehicle. This is, thrill.
So like the
handle of the wheelbarrow.
Wheelbarrow, yeah. That's called a trill?
I think it's
T-H-I-L-L.
Oh,
T-H-I-L-L.
without the R.
T-H-I-L.
T-H-I-L-L. Does it make sense? I'm sorry. With the thrills of our cart heading to the north.
Okay.
Does it make sense? So this is like going to south when the feel of our cart heading north. It's not possible. Or like trying to see the northern stars. Northern stars mean the Big Dipper, while we are facing the south. And he continued, if we seek Buddha outside life and death, we would accumulate the causes of life and death more and more, and lose the path of liberation. Just understand that life and death as a compound, or samsara, is itself nirvana. Life and death is itself nirvana, means samsara is itself nirvana. And neither dislike life and death, nor seek after nirvana. Only at that time will it be possible for us to be released from life and death. Does this make sense? And a little later he says, this present life and death, our own life and death, we are actually living here now. This present life and death is the life of Buddha. Life. life of Buddha. Life of Buddha. So this life and death as samsara is Buddha's life. I wrote capital L life. This is Buddha's life. So this our lives in samsara, this actual living and dying, is Buddha's life. This present life and death is the life of Buddha. If we dislike it and trying to get rid of it, we would lose the life of Buddha. If we desire to remain in life and death, if we want to stay within life and death, and attach ourselves to life and death, to it, we would also lose the life of Buddha. What would be retained is simply the appearance of Buddha. That means appearance means image of Buddha or concept. Only when we don't dislike life and death and don't desire life and death do we first enter the mind of Buddha. So when we don't hate life and death, and also we don't desire life and death, then we are free from life and death. That means just live and just die without attachment or without hatred. This is how Buddha described, not Buddha, Dogen described, I think, Buddha's deathlessness. And without this attitude, I think there's no such liberation or nirvana. And being free from life and death. So this story or biography of Shakyamuni Buddha, he kind of fight against life and death and try to find a path to conquer the life and death. And after he attained the enlightenment, he said, now the gate of deathlessness is open. And so what he did next 40 years is life and death without attachment and hatred against life and death. In that sense, he accepted life and death. In that means he became friend with Māra, I think. So Buddha didn't really fight against Māra and killed the Māra. But Buddha became kind of a friend with Māra and lived together with him. So he didn't really escape from life and death. So this deathlessness does not mean escaping or fighting or killing life and death, but kind of accepting and becoming friend. Well, this is what I have to say this morning about one aspect of Buddha's awakening. Any question or comments?
It seems to, so the concept of conquering, Buddha conquering something, what I'm hearing from you is a different version of Buddha conquering Māra. And what I wonder is if it would be more accurate to say that Buddha conquered his own desire for life and death and his own hatred of life and death.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So Buddha and Māra are one person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Māra is part of our life. So how can we become friends with Māra?
Yeah.
I think is the point of this teaching. Okay. Please.
I remember a story where Ananda was expressing regret that another monk had died, a monk that he admired and loved greatly. And I remember the Buddha's response to Ananda was, why would you be sad? What have you lost? Have you lost your capacity to be awake? Have you lost your body, for example? And I don't remember much more about that story, but I want to contrast that story, if it's accurate, if my memory is accurate, with Buddha's own sadness that his clan was decimated or murdered or wiped out. Because I hear Buddha saying, Ananda, don't be sad, and what I see, or what I'm understanding, is Buddha himself is sad. And if that's true, then Buddha is telling Ananda to do something that he says, but not what he does. I don't like that.
But Ananda didn't change. When Buddha passed away, Ananda cried, and he couldn't stop crying. So Ananda didn't accept Buddha's teaching. To me, that is interesting. And not because of that, but somehow Ananda was criticized
by other monks. But do you know the story that I'm referring to, where a monk dies and the Buddha and Ananda have this conversation?
I don't remember that particular story.
Okay.
But in the Parinibbana Sutta in Pali, the sutra said if Ananda was aware that Buddha accepted Mara's invitation to die, then Buddha could continue to live. So that was Ananda's fault.
Whoa.
I don't know this is historically true or not, but actually that was mentioned. So Ananda was kind of a victim. And I think he represents a kind of a common person, common people.
Yeah, and still attached. Mm-hmm. But wasn't the Buddha attached when his people died? Or what's the difference?
I'm not sure, but he tried the attack by the king 2 or 3 times, but he gave it up. I think he still had sadness and pain. But I think the story explained Buddha's seed, cause and result, and not possible to stop it.
Yeah. So it seems that if the Buddha doesn't suffer anymore, that sadness is not suffering.
I'm not sure.
Maybe suffering is staying in the sadness. I mean, if you have a human body and a human mind, you're going to have sadness and anger and joy and everything. But when we get stuck in whatever our response is, that's the suffering part, because we don't want to give it up, or we want it to go away, or we don't want to get it to go away, instead of just accepting, okay, this is a sad thing, and then it passes at some point.
Yeah, I think Buddha had sadness and probably suffering, but this sadness and suffering or pain didn't cause him anger and fight against the king. So I think his sadness and pain is much deeper, and it didn't make him fight again the king.
And it doesn't cause more sadness and pain out in the world.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, it seems like, the sadness and the distress is like anything we can let go of. He was able to let go of it. He experienced it. But I think there's letting go, and then it doesn't cause future action. You don't hold on to it, hold a grudge, and try to fight against somebody. Let it go.
Okay, anything else, please?
During the Vietnam War, Buddhist monks, a few of them self-immolated, poured gasoline on themselves, caused their own death. In the light of the teachings,
Even
What
today,
do you
Tibetan
take
monks
away
do
from that?
the same thing.
what?
Even today, Tibetan monks do the
Yes,
same thing.
yes, I've heard that. Myanmar.
Mm.
What do we take away from that? How do we see that? How would you see that? Do you recall how you viewed that back in the day that it happened during the Vietnam War?
When I heard the news, probably I was a teenager, and I was shocked. And but I didn't feel the monks was angry, but more like a sadness. And I don't think what he did was caused by kind of as a fighting against the enemy. But he expressed his very deep sadness. Please.
Last week, somewhere in there, 2 weeks ago, I happened to be reading. I was trying to find out how Thich Nhat Hanh was doing, and from that, I wound up reading some of what he was saying, on the various situations. And he referred back to this, and he said just what you surmised. He said these monks were not angry, but that in my memory of what I read, he said that prior to that, with the government, Dragon Lady and all that people, whatever that had to do with it, I don't know, but he said that nobody, the outside world did not realize what was going on. Nobody heard them, is what he said. They would, protest or this or that, but nobody was hearing them. And according to my understanding of what Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, this was a way to get people to say, listen, listen. But it was, as you already said, not anger. It was, listen to us. If they won't listen, okay. See if they notice this. It was quite different. This was what you said. And that I actually read Thich Nhat Hanh quote.
Ah. Okay. I think for the monk, that was the only thing he could do. He couldn't find any other method to express his sadness, I think.
Taking human life, though?
Yeah, I think it's against Buddhist precept. But I think he had to do. Well, we need to do the ceremony, so I'm sorry. We can continue after the ceremony during.
Children should be coming too.
Okay. Okay, thank you.